Still Life with Woodpecker, Phase 1, Chapter 1. In the last quarter of the 20th century, at a time when Western civilization was declining too rapidly for comfort, and yet too slowly to be very exciting, much of the world sat on the edge of an increasingly expensive theater seat, waiting, with various combinations of dread, hope, and ennui, for something momentous to occur. Something momentous was bound to happen soon. The entire collective unconscious could not be wrong about that. But what would it be? And would it be apocalyptic or rejuvenating? A cure for cancer or a nuclear bang? A change in the weather or a change in the sea? Earthquakes in California, killer bees in London, Arabs in the stock exchange, life in the laboratory, or a UFO on the White House lawn? Would Mona Lisa sprout a mustache? Would the dollar fail? Christian aficionados of the Second Coming scenario were convinced that after a suspenseful interval of 2,000 years, the other shoe was about to drop. And five of the era's best known psychics, meeting at the Chelsea Hotel, predicted that Atlantis would soon reemerge from the depths. To this last, Princess Lee Cherie responded, "There are two lost continents. Hawaii was one, called Mu, the mother, its tips still projecting in our senses, the land of slapdance, fishing, music, flowers, and happiness. There are three lost continents. We are one, the lovers." In whatever esteem one might hold Princess Lee Cherie's thoughts concerning matters geographic, one must agree that the last quarter of the 20th century was a severe period for lovers. It was a time when women openly resented men, a time when men felt betrayed by women, a time when romantic relationships took on the character of ice in spring, stranding many little children on jagged and inhospitable floes. Nobody quite knew what to make of the moon anymore. 2. Consider a certain night in August. Princess Lee Cherie was gazing out of her attic window. The moon was full. The moon was so bloated, it was about to tip over. Imagine awakening to find the moon flat on its face on the bathroom floor, like the late Elvis Presley, poisoned by banana splits. It was a moon that could stir wild passions in a moo cow, a moon that could bring out the devil in a bunny rabbit, a moon that could turn lug nuts into moonstones, turn Little Red Riding Hood into the big bad wolf. For more than an hour, Lee Cherie stared at the mandala of the sky. "Does the moon have a purpose?" she inquired of Prince Charming. Prince Charming pretended that she had asked a silly question. Perhaps she had. The same query put to the Remington SL3 elicited this response. Albert Camus wrote that the only serious question is whether to kill yourself or not. Tom Robbins wrote that the only serious question is whether time has a beginning and an end. Camus clearly got up on the wrong side of the bed, and Robbins must have forgotten to set the alarm. There is only one serious question, and that is, who knows how to make love stay? Answer me that, and I will tell you whether or not to kill yourself. Answer me that, and I will ease your mind about the beginning and the end of time. Answer me that, and I will reveal to you the purpose of the moon. 3. Historically, members of Lee Cherie's class have not much fallen in love. They mated for power and wealth, for tradition and heirs, and left true love to the masses. The masses had nothing to lose. But this was the last quarter of the 20th century, and with the exception of a few savage buffoons in Africa, the royalty of the world had long since resigned itself to the fact of its mortal, if not quite democratic, dimensions. Lee Cherie's family was a case in point. Since his exile more than 30 years before, the king had made gambling a career. Poker was his work. Recently, however, he had had a taste of open heart surgery. A major valve had been removed and replaced with a Teflon substitute. The artificial valve functioned efficiently, but it made a metallic noise as it opened and shut. When he was excited, everyone in the room knew it. Due to the audible sound of his heart, he was no longer able to practice poker, a game with necessary concealments and bluffs. Jesus, he said, when I draw a good hand, I sound like a Tupperware party. He spent his hours watching sports on television, pining for the good old days when he could have ordered referees and umpires to the guillotine. His wife, the Queen, once the beauty of 7 capitals, was underestimated and overweight. She had attended in America so many second rate society teas, charity fashion shows, and gala events, and gala this and gala that, that she'd begun to exude a kind of pâté de foie gras, and the expulsion of this effluvium propelled from her party to ball as if she were a sausage skin inflated by Wagner. With no lady to attend her, she required 2 hours to dress, and since she changed clothes thrice daily, the draping, bejeweling, and painting of her bulk amounted to a full-time job. The Queen had long ago abandoned her husband to the tube and her daughter to the attic. Her sons, she could scarcely recall their number, were scattered about Europe, entangled in endless financial adventures of a primarily shady nature, and were lost to her. She had one intimate, a chihuahua that she clutched to her bosom. If asked what he expected from the last quarter of the 20th century, the king would have replied, now that it is no longer reasonable to hope for the restoration of the monarchy, my fondest wishes are that the Seattle Mariners win the pennant, the Seattle Sonics make the NBA playoffs, and the Seattle Seahawks go to the Super Bowl, and that the play-by-play announcers be replaced by Sir Kenneth Clark. The same question directed at the Queen would have induced this reaction. Uh-oh, spaghetti-o, her favorite Americanism. What can you expect of crazy peoples? I am happy only that mein father and mein mamma mia are in the heaven and not having to suffer from no stinking modern times. Sacre bleu! I do my duty to the crown, and das is that. The Queen had learned English in 7 capitals. Each night, on a worn but opulent Kashan rug, beside a canopied barge of a bed, Queen Tilly lowered herself onto knees that resembled great wads of bubblegum and prayed for the deliverance of the crown, the health of her chihuahua, the state of Grand Opera, and not much else. Each night, King Max would steal into the kitchen to eat by the spoonful the salt and the sugar that the doctors had eliminated from his meals. It's something other than 5 centuries of inbreeding that's queering this royal family, thought Princess Lee Cherie, whom gossip columnists recently had characterized as a retired cheerleader, a moonstruck social activist, a tragic beauty who has sequestered herself in an attic. This family has got the last quarter of the 20th century blues. 4. Palace in exile for the Furstenberg Barcelonas, which was quite their name, Palace in exile for the Furstenberg Barcelonas, which was quite their name, was a voluminous 3-story yellow frame house on the shore of Puget Sound. The house was built in 1911 for a Seattle lumber baron who, in reaction against the turrets, cupolas, and dormers, that embellished the frontier Gothic mansions of his peers, ordered an American house, a house without frills, and got just that. It was a barn, with a peak, a box with a peaked roof. It sat among 10 acres of blackberry brambles, like an abandoned radio broadcasting creaks and whispers to the rain. The house was given to Max and Tilly by the CIA. The Firstantine Barcelona homeland was now ruled by a right wing military junta, supported by the United States government and, of course, Roman Catholic Church. While the U.S. publicly regretted that the junta permitted so few civil liberties, it was loath to interfere in the international affairs of a sovereign nation, particularly a nation that could be relied upon as an ally against those left leaning nations in whose internal affairs the U.S. did regularly interfere. It irritated the U.S. that royalists still loyal to Max and Tilly might disturb political stability in that part of the world. The U.S. paid King Max a modest stipend to keep a low profile and not fan any flames. Each year at Christmas, the Pope sent Queen Tilly a crucifix, a candlestick, or some other knickknack that he had personally blessed. Once Princess Lee Cherie had used a papal candlestick for the purpose of self-gratification. She had hoped that at the appropriate moment she might be visited by either the lamb or the beast, but as usual, only Ralph Nader attended her.